let's get into some wrestling talk. We speak pretty regularly, and I think Conan is going to be surprised to hear this, right? But with the toxicity that you faced for just like questioning some of the stuff AEW does, the fallout with the Flair podcast, you told me, like, bro, you don't watch wrestling anymore, huh?
No, I haven't watched a match since I watched Charlotte's match at Mania. I called that up online and watched it, and I watched Pat McAfee's match at WrestleMania, and I haven't watched a match since. I followed it from the periphery, like on Twitter and some of the websites, but no, I just have no stomach to watch it. I've come to realize, and seriously, when I say no offense to you guys, I mean it, but I've come to realize how many worthless people are involved in wrestling and how there's just no trust. There's no trust. I mean, when a lifelong friend does to you what Flair did to me, you'll feel exactly the same way. To just, totally stab me in the back in public like that. And Glenn, as you know, I've not, nearly told all my stories, and I won't because I don't want to. But that doesn't mean that didn't really knock me for a loop, man. That was very upsetting and still is.
Yeah. What's your relationship with Rick now? Do you guys still have you had any communication with each other since? Not at all.
No relationship. He sent me a text the day after that. I think I told you guys this last time. Want to know if we could, after 35 years of friendship, blah, blah, blah. And I told Conrad, his son-in-law, if he wants to insult me in public, tell him to apologize in public. And that never happened. So I'm content with the way it is. I really am.
Well, you're still friends. How's your relationship with Charlotte?
We spoke a couple times since then. I couldn't make her wedding, which she was gracious enough to invite me to, but I haven't heard from her since then. But I think okay, but I just don't know. I think the world of her, absolutely.
Right. What do you think about Flair having his final wrestling in his final match coming up?
Well, let me ask you guys. I think it's a terrible idea. I think putting a 73-year-old man with a pacemaker who was in a coma 4 years ago in the ring for a match is just a terrible idea. And to be fair, full disclosure, if I was still a Flair crony and a sycophant, I'd be saying it's great. Look at the H. One last drive, blah, blah, blah. I would be no better. So I'm not necessarily pointing fingers here. But right. I just can't see where anybody thinks this is a good idea. They don't even know who's in the match yet, from what I can see. I don't see anybody in the wrestling quote-unquote media, and I use that term very loosely, saying it's a bad idea. There are certain things in the wrestling media that nobody will criticize because they don't want the mob to come after them. But I just think this is a terrible idea. I think there's an incredible amount of risk. I think that, is Rick changing his habits between when this match was announced and the match? I'm sure he's training really hard because he trains like crazy. But what about, his lifestyle? How much does he cut back on whatever would be necessary to get through this? And, I don't know, but I know what I would guess. So I just think it's a bad idea. What do you guys think?
I'll give you my take first. I want to hear what Conan thinks. Like I said, we see the videos of him training with Jay Lethal, right? And my take is, I watch those videos, and I'm like, all right, he can do that in front of a people. You could have people pay money, put him around the ring, and do that in front of the exact same thing he does in training with in front of people. All right, but even doing that is with the guy with the pacemaker stuff. I'm sure he's had very good medical advice that said that's greenlighting this, and if he hasn't, that's very problematic. And I don't know if he has or not. I'm just assuming that he.
To be fair, I'm sure he has too. I also know you can get doctors to say whatever you want them to in a situation like this.
Right.
What do you think, Conan?
I really have a little bit of mixed feelings. I don't think, I'm afraid because of his health issues, something might happen. But Flair's Flair. And, when I was in Mexico, Madden, when we did that angle, I don't know if you saw it last year. Did. Right. So he was in the dressing room like a madman in a pink shirt and vest and all that with the whole rings and all that. And he was in there doing Hindu squats and push-ups, and Andrade had a shirt and he had a shirt. They were pulling back and forth. And I'm positive that if I would have told Rick, hey, Rick, will you come off the top and let me throw you or something like that? He probably would have said yes. Because he loves the business so much, and he has to be around it, and he has to hear applause. I mean, that he's coming back. I don't know if he's coming back for money, or if he's just coming back because he needs to hear that adulation. There's people that they miss the applause, they miss the limelight, they miss the glory, And if it's his last match, I'm cool with it. I just have a feeling this isn't his last match because I think that's how it's being announced. I know that there's going to be a lot because I was talking with Conrad, and there's going to be a lot of really cool surprises in that show. It's a hard one because, Ric's going to wrestle whether you want him to or not. He'd probably be happy dying in the middle of the ring. You know him better than I do. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I thought I did, but yeah. I don't know. I mean, like, by all accounts, I saw an interview that Ric did where he said the last match was Conrad's idea. Right. His own son-in-law is putting a 73-year-old guy with a pacemaker and who was in a coma 4 years ago in the ring.
Yeah.
I mean, to me,
I think you know Conrad well enough to know, and me too. That I don't think if he was in bad health, he'd let him go in the ring. I'm sure he told Ric, we'll do it, but you got to check yourself out. You got to get. I'm just saying, we don't know, Mark. We don't know. Let's talk.
Let's talk about this too, because this is fresh off the iron. About letting. But here's
about all this.
But let me tell you this too. There's another narrative.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that could go wrong. He could get injured. I mean, he's old. His bones are brittle. He could have a heart problem. He could have a seizure. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. You're absolutely right.
Let's put everybody on trial here as to, okay, are we involved in making good decisions for people? Let's bring up the Jeff Hardy situation. Perfect example. Jeff Hardy comes back. He's a guy that was having some trouble supposedly with maybe his old demons coming back in the WWE. They let him go. AEW picks him up. Jeff Hardy has a match against Darby Allin, a ladder match on TV. Okay, they're doing the craziest stuff. I mean, if you wanted to say Ric Flair, whoever would greenlight Ric Flair having another match. We're probably the same people that were okay watching Darby Allin and Jeff Hardy doing all that crazy stuff.
Different.
No. But listen. What is the result of what happened? Like the decision of letting Jeff Hardy go and be himself and do all his shit.
Jeff Hardy's 73. Jeff Hardy doesn't have a pacemaker.
But did you hear the story, Mark? He just got arrested today for DUI. He's going back into rehab.
I know that.
Okay, do you think if they would have not had him go back and do all of his other stuff that he'd be in his place?
I can't connect Jeff Hardy's wrestling style to him getting a DUI. I just don't see the connection.
Seriously?
Yes.
You don't think the pain-inducing style where you need opioids and stuff to get better didn't affect this?
We don't know.
Interesting.
I mean, a lot of people get DUIs every day that don't take crazy bumps.
Right. That's true.
But getting back to the Flair thing, I mean, hey, he can do what he wants. And Conrad can do what he wants. I'm just amazed that this seems to be getting rubber stamped by everyone as a good idea. And then there's the roast the Ric Flair. How do you roast Ric Flair after that Dark Side of the Ring episode? Okay? Seriously, how do you roast him? Okay, are you going to not talk about that? Because a roast is supposed to be no holds barred.
Yeah.
Is this going to be a roast or is it going to be a testimonial? And either way is fine by me. I just think that's a fair question.
Right. Interesting.
Well, there's a bigger question that I want to get to.
Why don't just roast Deshaun Watson?
Sure. Good point, right?
So
go ahead, Conan.
I have a bigger problem, and that problem is it's unfortunate that the wrestling fans have driven you out of the business with their because I hardly go on social media. I use Twitter is the only one I really go on. I don't go on anything else, and I usually go on Twitter really to promote, to network, to see funny stuff from my friends that they're posting or to troll somebody. Okay?
Same thing everybody else does, but you're not obsessed with it.
Right. Yeah, but I'm not out there telling people, hey, you suck and suck my and go yourself and I hope you die because you all this stupid that's unnecessary and I don't spend my whole day I would say 80% of the wrestlers, maybe even more, looking through social media to see who puts me over, and
retweeting every tweet that puts you over.
Right. And then the thing is, if you put over the podcast, I will retweet that. And then the other thing is that that I know that sometimes I may miss out on a lot of cool because I'm not on social media, but I don't care because there's so much toxic and I'm not this fear of missing out thing. Good. I don't want to hear a lot of and you got all these fans, Mark, who, they're they're so sensitive, right? they're okay. They love to bully you. They're this generation, that the first generation that has trigger warnings and group hugs and
safe spaces,
and helicopter parents and
virtue signaling all the time,
microaggressions, warning.
Yeah.
You might see a word that might upset you. I just saw this thing by Lizzo. Lizzo?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And now they have this term. Listen to this. How is this? She made a song called Girls, okay, which is I'm assuming is about girls empowerment maybe. And she used the word and now this thing called ableist, which means that if you make fun of like the disabled, even if they're mentally disabled, that's now a big taboo. So she said they said, and I was thinking, well, what's so bad about that? Because, people that actually have muscle spasms and stuff like that, it might hurt their little feelings. Well, why would it hurt their feelings if you're not talking to them, But anyways, and now they say you shouldn't say, oh, I'm so OCD if you don't really have OCD, because you're insulting people that have it. You shouldn't use the term, oh, he's so ADDHD. I just read this, Mark, okay? He's so ADDHD because it might insult people that actually have ADDHD, right? Oh, this guy's so bipolar. You shouldn't say it unless he actually has, because you're insulting people that have. And I'm like, what the how do we, the pussification of America continues, bro. It's incredible that you can't say and all these people, and this is the thing why I don't let any very rare that I go on, I go back and forth with fans on Twitter. Usually I'll go back and forth with somebody I know, so like if you took shots at me, believe me, they're coming back, right? But usually I don't give a time to day to fans unless I'm in a bad mood. But at the end of the day, like there's an old saying by Teddy Roosevelt, which is, it's a long saying, but it's very true. He always said something like, it isn't the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how strong. It's basically, it isn't the critic who counts, but the credit belongs to the man who's actually in the, doing the work, who's actually being marred by dust and blood and sweat and taking a chance. These aren't doing anything. All they do all day is talk about others because they've never done in their life, and they probably won't. And I always tell them, let me know when you are somebody in life and you have done something in life, and then you can come get at me.
Well, everything you said is 100% true, okay? But the fans and the way I'm treated on Twitter isn't why I don't watch wrestling. It's because of the stuff with Rick, that blow up where Dax Harwood came after me on Twitter because I had the temerity to suggest that his match with the Briscoes wasn't as big a deal as WWE having WrestleMania just across town. It just, he called me a piece of because I disagreed with him about wrestling. Think about that. He called me a piece of because I disagree with him about wrestling. And again, no offense to you guys, but it made me realize that wrestling is a crowd I don't want to be involved with. Between that, the Flair thing, and yeah, some of the stuff on Twitter, and I've made a lot of good friends in wrestling that I still do keep in touch with, but it just made me realize this ain't the group for me. This ain't what it was when I was involved. And it's not what they think it is either. They think it's one big happy family now in wrestling. It's still a group of people who would stab each other in the back in a second to get better for themselves. That's why wrestling doesn't and never will have a union.
No, I can't disagree with any of that.
I can't disagree with that because you and the funny too, because Bruce Mitchell doesn't watch wrestling anymore too. You two still keep in contact with each other.
Bruce Mitchell doesn't watch wrestling?
No, they drove him out because of his, attempted reporting on the death of Brody Lee. You know what I mean? And if you disagree with it, that's fine. He was trying to report a story.
Right.
Yeah. It's really a shame that they treat and
it's so funny because it's so funny, Mark, because I 1,000,000% guarantee you, okay, that's a pretty high percentage, that all these that are trying to cancel people, trying to get them fired, or trying to publicly humiliate them, trying to chastise them, trying to virtue signaling, they've got the same, if not more, shenanigans and problems and up that they've done.
No question.
And when you turn it around on them, it's a whole different story.
Including some of the people we're talking about right now. But the thing, and I don't want to comment on the actual reporting of the Brody Lee thing because that's just, I don't want the mob to come after me either. Right. But I have some definite opinions about that I will give at some point. I think it's a shame that Bruce Mitchell, one guy who wasn't under the tent, one guy who didn't have an agenda, one guy who always told the truth, that he was drummed out. Wade Keller's still involved. Wade Keller's the editor of Pro Wrestling Torch. He cleared that to get on his website. But he turned on Mitchell, his life, his employee for decades. Meltzer turned on Mitchell. It was disgusting what those guys did. Whether you disagree with what Mitchell did or not.
Wow, Meltzer and Mitchell were good friends.
Yeah. And so
I didn't even know this story. Yeah.
You have guys like Sean Ross Sapp, who his last name is as apt as it comes.
Right.
Who got played like a fiddle with the whole MJF shoot work, and then came out after people going after them because he was made a fool of.
Right.
You know what I mean? These guys, nobody who works in the wrestling media, and I mean nobody, not one single person in wrestling media is a real journalist. You know why? They've never had a boss. They've never had an editor. They've never had a fact checker. When they have any of those, then they're in journalism. Now they're just regurgitating. They're just assimilating. They're just furthering other people's agendas, and they're all under the tent. Every single one is under the tent. I've worked in journalism since I was 17 years old. I know what it is, and I'm 100% right about this.
Tell everybody what you mean by under the tent, if they don't understand that term.
Well, in a literal sense that they're getting paid by somebody for favorable publicity, which I don't believe. I think under the tent means that they just want to be part of it. They want to be friends with the boys. They want to be friends with Tony Khan. They want to feel like they're welcome backstage. Whereas in real journalism, there is an adversarial relationship to some degree between the journalist and who they cover. And there is no evidence of that whatsoever in wrestling. There used to be with Meltzer and McMahon, but now there's no evidence of it at all.
Yeah, because all they do is basically just bury they bury WWE's booking every week, and they put over AEW's. It's like that. That is the wrestling media these days.
They're all AEW fans.
Yeah,
and you got a bunch of wrestlers, the majority, that can't take criticism.
Yeah.
Because
for sure.
I've told Disco without getting into names. I have to go tomorrow to the AEW dressing room to fix some business for AAA. And I already know in the back of my mind, there's going to be certain people that will not talk to me because I said something about them in the podcast. Because the last time I was there, they ignored me. And the only reason they would ignore me would be because of that. And I've actually had people come up to me and say, "Hey, I can't believe you said this." And I'm like, okay, did I say anything personally about you? No. I go, okay, so then what are you mad about? I'm talking about your work. Nobody can critique it, I
mean, like it's the wrestlers today.
Tony, and if anybody can critique it, you can. Because you've been around, you've done so much. You've been in some classic matches and on some classic shows. You're not supposed to say how somebody on AEW Dark Elevation wrestled.
Right, on any show. And so, but anyways, but that's the way it is, bro. I've had people from WWE step to me and tell me the same thing, But anyways, it is what it is.
Let me tell you too, okay? And this is where I say about the Flair match, kind of pulling the circle all the way around. I've gotten texts and DMs from half a dozen wrestlers saying, "Why is this happening? Who thinks this is a good idea? Why doesn't somebody stop him?" Much like I got texts and DMs from 15 wrestlers about the way Flair treated me on the way out the door.
Right.
You know what I mean? But nobody says it in public because everybody wants to act like they're friends, but they ain't friends.
Right.
They ain't friends.
Right. And that's the problem, bro. Nobody wants to hurt any. This is one of the biggest problems in wrestling and even in society. Nobody wants to hurt anybody's feeling. Nobody wants to get any heat. So all we do is each other.
Yeah.
The funniest thing is how, what's the percentage of the people that probably bury me, make fun of me and stuff as opposed to putting me over?
Well, those people I agree with.
Me too.
Probably 95% to 5%, right? Bro, it's funny how we'll just go on the podcast each week, we'll review the shows, we'll listen, and all of a sudden people you were texting before, then they just quit answering your texts.
Oh, well,
and it's just whatever.
Don't mention names, but there are some guys I was really close to that just disappeared on me.
Yeah.
And, guys in AEW, I guess because I don't think it's the best wrestling promotion ever. And because I don't think it's a patch on WCW's ass, not a remote patch on WCW's ass. And all I get when I say that is, well, what happened at the end? They went out of business. Well, so did ECW, so did Mid-South, so did Crockett. Almost every wrestling promotion goes out of business eventually. But what happened while it was alive? What happened at its peak?
It's a good point. And people try to discount that because they say, "Oh, you went out of business." So it's like whatever. Where can we find you, brother?
WXDX.com for my radio show or the iHeartMedia app. I write for WXDX.com. I write for TribLive.com. I write sports for them. And I guess that's about it.
Okay, man. We're going to have Mark on more often. He had been on a long hiatus. And
no, anytime. You guys are good guys. I trust you guys.
Joe, is there any way we can look this up? I think, Madden, you might be our most frequent guest. Would that be accurate, Conan, you think?
He's not only that, one of my favorite meltdowns is definitely from Madden. So yes.
The last year, the Ted Irvin meltdown.
That was great.
One last thing I want to say about Rick.
Yeah.
Okay, because if I said anything today or in my last appearance that was unfair,
No.
I haven't called him names. I haven't, been egregious. There are some things I've held back that Glenn knows about, and Conan, you know some of them too. Okay, but when he does his roast, and maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I'm wrong. Is Hunter going to be there? Is Arn going to be there? Is Randy Orton going to be there? Is Bruce MacArthur going to be there? Are guys who were his friends going to be there, or have they all just moved on because of how he's acted?
I don't know what his relationship is with those guys.
I do.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see. So
now, if they're getting a check to be there, let me tell you, there's no amount of money they could offer me to be there. None.
Which is a shame because if you and Rick were still together, you'd probably be the funniest person at the roast. How many roasts have you done before?
Like 4 or 5. Not that many.
Right?
Yeah. I'm good at it, though.
Yeah, of course you are.
Ask Tony Khan.
Here's the one thing you can say about Mark Madden. There's 2 people on social media that I would say you don't want to get in a beef with because they'll probably just eviscerate you on it because they won't hold back. You and Cornette are like the two people I would not want to have.
Cornette blocks me, so I don't know.
Right, yeah, you two don't like, but he would just like he will go after you until you lose. Just like you always get your hand raised in the end. Every single time that somebody tries to come at you.
It's not that important either. That's why I always get my hand raised, because I just don't think it's that important.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much, Mark. We will be having you on soon again. And
anytime.
Thank you for being on Keeping It 100. Be cool, my friend. Boom. Yo, what up? This is Conan, and I host Keeping It 100, my co-host, Disco Inferno, unfortunately.
Well, I'd say you're my co-host.
Listen, every Thursday here on Spreaker, we talk pro wrestling, sports, movies, music, TV, pop culture, and some politics. It's everything the rest of the pro wrestling podcasts are not.
Tune in to hear myself, the superior one, educate and inform.
Tune in to hear me bury Disco.
That's very disrespectful.
Join us every Thursday on Spreaker and keep it 100. Boom!